Hey guys, this is Happy Fridays, August 23rd, and it was a scenario that was brought to my attention, and I just want to just talk about it real quick. Things that because the NAR lawsuits and all these new forms, and how we present and make sure compensation is done correctly. We should be aware of the ups and the downs, if that makes sense. Okay, so when we submit an offer, we have a purchase agreement, right? It's as is, or if it's not as is, it's whatever, right? Here's a purchase agreement. The agreement is basically price and term of the property for the buyer and the seller. We have to add the compensation form. The compensation form is real simple. It's either it's a crow broker, so the seller broker is offering X amount commission of their commission. So if they're getting 6% in this scenario, and they're offering 3%, then 3% will go to there, and we're putting it in paper that the seller broker is agreeing to pay 3%. Vice versa, we're negotiating with the buyer because the buyer, excuse me, let me rephrase that. If the seller is offering up to 3%, then will present that offer, and we will make sure that compensation form that's the seller is paying X amount. So if it's 3%, or if they negotiated to 2.5, 2 3/4, whatever that scenario is, it really doesn't matter. If it's agreed upon, great, you're good to go. The question or the scenario that was presented to me was, hey, what happens if I forget to submit that compensation form? So we can look at it two different ways. On the listing side, if I'm the listing agent, am I required, right, to inform that buyer's agent, hey, you forgot to ask for compensation? Now, if we really think about it, we're still representing this listing side. We represent the seller. If it's a seller broker or buyer's broker, honestly, that should be an easy no-brainer. We work with our fellow agents, and that's something that we're already established. Now the problem becomes if it's the sellers that's negotiating that fee, then what is our what is our responsibility? I will probably say, if you're the listing side, you will mention it. I probably would say, hey, don't forget we did this. I know that the agent did not submit it. The right thing is to make a notation. I guess the question will become, if the seller says, well, if they didn't ask for it, I don't have to pay it because it wasn't in writing. So how that's going to present itself in the future, I have no idea. I would say mention it to the sellers. Most sellers will probably be okay with say, hey, yeah, let's take care of this now, so we're not having a problem later on. But you're always going to have those outliers, in the sense that if they ain't asked for it, I'm not paying it. Let them take me to court. So just be careful, guys. If you're on the buyer side, all of a sudden you're doing all this work and you forgot to ask for compensation, you did not use those forms. That'll be an issue. So I guess it's ethically correct. That's a big question mark, and I'm not sure how the board is going to look at it, because this is compensation with the seller, and if the seller decides to fight it, then great question. I don't know. So let's get ahead of this, guys. Make sure we put the board on there. Put the compensation form up there, and make sure that we are asking for those things here. Tip of the day: make sure you understand what those forms are. Make sure you understand that which is the difference between co-broker and if it's seller negotiated, and so forth. Okay, or if there's no compensation. Side note: just a quick bonus. You can show a house as offering zero compensation or offering 1% commission, right? Or up to 1% or 2%, whatever it is. And you still can submit your form and ask for the compensation for the whole thing. The buyer will have to make the decision if they're going to bridge it, or if they're going to say, hey, I will buy it and I'm asking the seller to pay for it. If not, then we'll walk away because that's a decision that the buyer made because of their financing or whatever the case scenario is. The buyer has to make that decision. The seller has to make that decision. And if we have a meeting of the minds and they're in agreement, the listing and what they're offering does not mean what has to be set in stone. It's just basically it's kind of an outline, if you will. Doesn't mean we can't ask for it. It just means that they don't have to accept it. And let's be real, no contract you have to accept. Okay. If we want to go down that rabbit hole, call up, make an appointment, or come to our training, and then we can talk a little bit more about that. I know this year we're probably going to see a whole bunch of different new scenarios, such as can they get split half and half or whatever the percentage, or whatever. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. God bless. Love you. Enjoy.